Okay, this is a special Thursday early morning video from 1 Degree Outside Weather Network just for northern New England residents, for Vermont, central and northern New Hampshire, and Maine. It's just that really when we do the early morning video for the next 24 hours, we try to condense everything so folks can grab it and go. But you've got such a different forecast. You really kind of deserve your own look here today. So here's what's going on. We talked in the other video, I don't know if you saw it or not, but about the fact that warmer air is coming in. That's what really has been driving this push of snow showers been coming across northern New England. On the New England wide radar, you can actually see that change now to sleet and freezing rain. It's been going on across southern portions of New England. That hasn't arrived yet. It is very disorganized in terms of the snow. It's patchy. You get into it, you get out of it. But as the warm air continues to move in, you'll continue to find those patches coming on by, and that will at least add up over time. It's not going to be a ton of snow. I think we're talking about probably what will be on the order of about a coating to 2 inches in some of the valleys, for example, across central and southern portions of New Hampshire. But that picks up and goes more like 2 to 4 inches and eventually 6 to 12 inches the farther north that you go. You can see the snow is filled in across the Maine Turnpike this morning. It certainly is the case in the Mount Washington Valley for that matter as well. So you say, okay, where do we go from here? Well, first of all, the temperature is very cold in northern Maine. So the snow that arrives to northern Maine is going to be a very different consistency from what's been falling across portions of, let's say, southern Vermont and southern New Hampshire, where it's definitely kind of a wetter consistency. Notice that as we get out through the course of the mid-morning, your temperature stays really cold even as the snow arrives across the north country of Maine. Now, for a lot of the rest of us, Augusta, the temperature starts to tick up somewhat, and you'll notice where the pinks begin to mix in. This is going to be a change at first to sleet. The concern here is that we may actually end up with a period of freezing rain around the Lakes region. When you get from Sunapee in the Monadnock region, then running up all the way to Plymouth, there'll be a period of freezing rain that comes in during the later morning and the early afternoon. Now, the good news there is as soon as it starts changing over to freezing rain, the intensity starts to break up somewhat because it is a disorganized event, right? So you don't end up with a ton of it, but you do end up with some icing that lasts longer, for example, than portions of central and southern New England. Notice the snow continues in northern Maine all the way through 5 p.m. Same thing in the great north woods of New Hampshire around Coos County, where actually snow showers and some heavier bursts continue into the evening for that matter as well. So while for a lot of central and southern New England, we're saying the treated roads should improve pretty nicely as we get to the evening without much black ice, that may be a different story, especially on lesser treated roads when you get across portions of northern New England where the roads may stay slick all the way into the night tonight. Something to be aware of there. So in terms of total amounts of snow, you can see at a New England wide view, we're talking about what is really just a coating to an inch or two running up through Manchester, right? But once you start coming into northern New England, not only do we pick up what would line up to be 2 to 4 inches with legend at the top across some of northern New England, but then when you get into the far north country, this is where the amounts really start to tick up, right? This is where not only the higher terrains of the whites running up through the mountains of Maine, but up into northern Maine, there are spots that if you line that purple up, that's an 8 to 12 inch snowfall that comes down. I mean, it's a pretty solid snow that comes over the course of the day today for a lot of the far north country. In terms of the ice that I was telling you about, I'll go ahead and play things through, and you'll notice that at first you don't see much of it, right? Through about 9:30 this morning. But if we add in the course of the afternoon, notice that ice that fills in through a lot of Vermont, much of central and western New Hampshire, northern New Hampshire, Maine, less in the way of freezing rain, more in the way of snow as we looked at, that may go over to some sleet. But you may get a quarter of an inch of ice, which is actually enough for maybe an isolated power outage to pop up when you get from the Monadnock region into southern Vermont and maybe even the northern Berkshires for a little bit as we head into the later portion of the day as well. High temperatures today across the area having trouble making it to the melting point once you break out of, let's say, right around the Green Mountains. Once you start getting to the Northeast Kingdom, once you run across the Great North Woods of New Hampshire, once you get into northern Maine, there's no way you come up to the melting point. The Maine coast will make a run toward it after kind of a bit of a messy mix here. In terms of wind, it's been gusty in the Green Mountains this morning early. That's going to die down a bit. You can see in the early afternoon, not a lot to write home about for many of us, a little bit gusty at the Maine coast, but the winds will kick up for us again as we head to this evening. You'll notice it both in the greens and watch this in the whites as we head into the overnight tonight. We actually really crank at some of the summits for a while. You line that up, that's going to be 50-mile-per-hour gusts. We actually think those will continue into the course of the day tomorrow. So Friday is going to be a very windy day for us as well. As you can imagine, this has an impact on the feels like forecast, right? Because low temperatures for tonight drop down across northern New England to about 10 degrees or so. But when you figure in the wind, it's going to feel like it's below zero in a whole bunch of spots. So that's what's coming up for tonight. And again, I think the wind continues tomorrow. I just want to remind you that our app actually works great in terms of one thing you do with the app. Noise is 1 degree outside weather. It's free, first of all. But you go ahead and you save a location. You can save favorite locations. If you click the 3 dots right next to the location you saved, you do pinpoint. you could pinch and zoom the map. So you could get actually into some of the notches in northern New England. If you have favorite ski spots, you could mark each of the peaks if you wanted to do that. It's really precise when it comes to that. So that's the way things look for now. Again, Insights comes out later on this morning. We'll take a look at the weekend storm. That's got a lot of potential for northern New England in particular.